everyone. Welcome to Senior Circuit. My name is Ashley Speliotis. I'm the Interim Director of the Somerville Council on Aging. And as we enter November, we're here to talk about nutrition. It's a great time of the year to start thinking about what's going in our bodies and to focus a little bit on nutrition. And this month we have with us Mary Marshall, who's new to the Somerville Council on Aging as our nutritionist, but not new to the city. So Mary, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit of the work that you're doing with the Council on Aging and also with Shape Up Somerville.
Okay, thanks. So I am Mary Marshall, and I have been living in Somerville my entire life. I have two children, one graduated from Somerville High School and one that's still in the public school system. I have been a nutritionist for over 25 years, and I also work for Shape Up Somerville. I do the restaurant program, the Shape Up Approved program that I've been doing for over 10 years. I also have a 90-year-old dad that I help take care of, so I'm pretty aware of how seniors like things. So when I was asked to join the Council on Aging, I felt that I was a little bit equipped with dealing with seniors. So the work that I'm doing with them right now is we're doing some workshops with, teaching them nutrition and how to eat well and how to get proper foods into their diet. And with this, with the COVID going on, some of them aren't shopping. So it's a little challenging, but then again, trying to work with what they have in their households is one of the key things that we talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you help run a group on Monday mornings and a group on Wednesday mornings, just really focused on general nutrition and having seniors have the opportunity to ask you different questions. And I know even prior to your work with Somerville, you had your own business as a nutritionist and deal a lot with general nutrition questions. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Some different ways to keep us healthy and to talk a little bit about how things might have changed because of the pandemic. I know that a common question right off the bat that you must get all the time is, what should I eat? Or what should I eat, especially during the pandemic? Are my nutritional needs changing?
That's definitely a question. A lot of people are more sedentary than they normally are. And what I tell people, it really depends on your lifestyle and your exercise and your age. So what I tell people is try to get as many of the 5 food groups in. And, if they're able to take a walk, then, they'll need to increase some calories. Just because they're home bound with this COVID doesn't mean that they're not as active. Some people are doing online exercising. Some people are still shopping or taking walks. So I tell them, let's get to the 5 food groups and let's plan out, some meals that way.
That's right. That's a good point that you don't think of that automatically. I think people are thinking that you're home more and you're exercising less, but maybe you're just exercising in a different way. Maybe you're doing the exercise tapes or you're on a Zoom exercise program. And then you really do have to watch about how much food you're consuming. Because do you think there is a general amount that a person should eat per day, or does it vary per person?
It absolutely varies per person because of a person's age and their body weight. So for instance, a 150-pound woman could exercise 3-4 times a week, and she may need 2,200 calories, whereas another 150-pound older person that's only taking a short walk here and there may only need about 1,500 calories. So it really varies on the person and their lifestyle. And age is always a factor because as we get older, our metabolism could slow down. I mean, I know that I have 70 and 80-year-old women in some of the classes, and one gentleman that exercise more than some 25-year-olds. So they can absolutely have a healthy, high-calorie diet because they're consuming that fuel.
Yeah, I think you're right that everybody is such an individual, and it makes me think of what we see on the news or our experiences when we go to the grocery store during this pandemic when certain items are being sold out or are told, to stock up on, but are there certain foods that you think that are good to have in your cabinet or are a good choice to try to stock up on?
Absolutely. Without the pandemic, I know in the wintertime, I don't really love to run to the grocery store that often. So I make sure that I have a lot of whole grains, bread, cereal, oatmeal, canned foods, fruits and vegetables, frozen fruits and vegetables. If you're a baker, flours, all your spices. But also, people don't realize you can do canned tuna or canned chicken. And these are the things that don't go bad. And they won't spoil on you, and if you use them, that's great. But if you don't have opportunity to get to the grocery store to get fresh, you'll always have them available to you. So those are some staples.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we always hear about the debate between fresh and frozen or canned. What's your take on that for vegetables and different products?
Again, with the same mentality, if you're not able to get to the store as often, opening up the freezer and having a bag of frozen vegetables that you can just take out what you need and put the rest back, they still have the same amount of fiber, and a lot of places flash freeze them, so they're very healthy. And also with cans, I tell people they may have some extra sodium in there, so be sure to rinse them. But a can of green beans has a significant amount of fiber. So if you're not able to get out, I would rather see someone stock up on canned and frozen so that they're not, and a lot of food spoils, especially when you're only shopping for one. So
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I think you just made an excellent point that a lot of people are cooking for one. And when you're in the grocery store, you see that maybe the packaging isn't made for one person. So for frozen vegetables or even canned, is there a way that you can refreeze the vegetables, or do you have to use everything in one sitting?
I recommend buying vegetables that have the seal tight Ziploc on them. If not, buy a box of Ziploc bags, and once you get them home, separate them and put them into the freezer for yourself. But again, if you take out the bag and you're only cooking for that evening, I've taken out enough thinking that my children may want to have some vegetables tonight, and they don't. And you know what? I just put them in the refrigerator for tomorrow. Just because they were frozen, I just put them in a Tupperware and just put them, or a Rubbermaid, whatever we use.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with canned. If I'm only using a half a can of corn or green beans, I will put the rest in a Rubbermaid and keep it in the fridge for tomorrow.
Absolutely. So you can get a couple meals out of one item that you buy in the grocery store, which is
Exactly,
great.
and it's a lot cheaper in the convenience, especially now. I mean, especially with seniors, they don't want to be at the grocery store, and a lot of them have friends that are shopping for them and asking them to buy, all this food every time they go. If they buy one big bag of frozen vegetables, at least the next time they don't have to buy it again because they'll have
Mhm.
it.
That's right. That's right. I think you mentioned people cooking and freezing, and I've noticed or heard from a lot of seniors that people are cooking the meals that they can't quite eat at that time. So they'll stick the cooked meal in the freezer. Is
hmm
that something that you recommend, and how long would you say is safe to keep it frozen?
Well, I find that I like to cook big, so I freeze a lot of my food because some days that you can just it's just what I do some days. And when you're cooking for one, you don't always want to cook every night. So if you're cooking, say, meatloaf or you're cooking some chicken, I tell people to, especially with chicken, because chicken can dry out. I try to cook my chicken just to the point that it's done, and then I remove it. And I'll finish cooking what I'm cooking for the family for that evening. And that piece I will take off so that it doesn't continue cooking and let it cool, and then I will wrap it in a freezer bag and put it in the freezer for myself, maybe for lunch next week. You know, but portioning things out, if you're cooking for one, some things can last 3 to 6 months, but I mean, in when you're cooking food, meals, I would suggest that you pick 3 or 4 of your meals and know that those are the things that you want to cook for like the next few weeks, that you might want to eat for the next few weeks, excuse me. And this way you have saved yourself from next week. And next week you can cook something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a nutritious meal, but it's a lot easier just pulling it out of the freezer than it is cooking with the pots and the pans and the cleaning. So it's a great
Exactly.
idea to do.
Especially the seniors always say to me, well, it's just myself, I'm only cooking for me. And sometimes, I know that if I'm only cooking for myself, if everyone's out, I mean, I might just look for that peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because I don't want to take out the pots and pans. And not, and peanut butter and jelly is just as nutritious, is very nutritious. But again, when you're cooking for just one, sometimes it does get tedious.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're right, peanut butter and jelly is just as nutritious, but sometimes sitting down and having an entire meal with the meat and potatoes and vegetable, it makes us feel good and makes our mental status improve that we have this nice meal that we didn't have to spend hours preparing, right?
Exactly, yes.
I mean, you mentioned a lot during the talking about vegetables about fiber, and why is fiber so important to us, and especially as we age?
Well, getting fiber into seniors is very important. Fiber helps you digest your foods, and you do not digest fiber itself. So it helps, your body sort of get rid of what it doesn't need. So when I recommend fiber to seniors, I ask them if they're not someone that eats whole grains or high fibrous foods, to introduce it very slowly, because a lot of people get very gassy, and a lot of people think they eat fiber just so they can go to the bathroom. Well, it's so that you can digest your foods, and especially the foods that you don't need. But you also want to make sure that that you get enough of the right fibrous foods. Fruits and vegetables supply lots of fiber, whole grains. But again, you want to be sure that you're having your fluids with that, so that they can digest the foods with the fiber.
Mm-hmm. And so what is it, a combination that you need the fluid and the fiber, or is one more important than the other?
Well, fluid always is important. I think that especially a senior should always have some fluids near them. But you can eat, salads. You could eat fruits and vegetables are very loaded with fluids and water. But what you do want to do is be sure that when you're eating a lot of fiber, you need the fluid to help you sort of push through the fiber. So you don't want to get too much fiber, because that also causes a lot of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
So the water actually works with the fiber to help you get rid of everything.
Yeah, so everything in moderation, it
Exactly.
sounds like. And I know sometimes fluids are hard for people because they tend to shy away if they don't want to keep getting up and going to the bathroom. But what can happen if you don't take enough fluids?
Well, especially if you're living alone and you're dehydrated, a lot of people don't even realize that in mid-afternoon, I don't know how many people in an office say, "Oh, I need a cup of coffee," because they feel so tired. Well, they're just dehydrated, and if you become thirsty, you've waited too long. So you shouldn't really feel thirst, because your body should have enough fluid all day long, with, even if you're eating grapes or if you're eating something with water. But the thing is, if you do not drink enough water and you're eating a high fibrous diet, like I said earlier, the discomfort, it's not fun. And, a lot of people become very gassy, and then they shy away from the fiber. But you want to be hydrated so that you can flush out your toxins.
Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting point. So you're saying that if you start to feel thirsty, you're already past the point of being thirsty. Is that right?
And that's been proven. I mean, if I realize that I'm thirsty, all of a sudden you feel parched, then you realize you haven't had any water, and you shouldn't really get to that point, because all day long you have opportunity to drink and eat. When you're sleeping, you do not have that. So some people actually wake up in the morning and they're actually thirsty, or they're hungry because they haven't had any food either. But the thing is, getting up and going to the bathroom as you get older is not the fun part. So I suggest, as you get older, pull back your liquids. some people pull back as early as 6 p.m. just because 2-3 trips in the middle of the night doesn't make for very good sleep.
Right. So drink all day, but know your time that you need to
Exactly.
turn
Know
it
your
off.
body. Listen to your body.
Exactly. Just kind of listening to your body and seeing what it needs. And I think the same conversation can be had about, like with fiber, can be had about fats and what is important or not important. Do we need to have some fat in our diet?
Absolutely. A lot of people, especially people trying to lose weight, try to stay away from fat. You need to eat good fats. Fats help you absorb absorb vitamins. They help you. Your body uses fat for energy. So you want to make sure that you're having the proper kinds of fats. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that if they have a handful of nuts, they could have 17 grams of fat, but that's very good fat for you. Your body will use that. Whereas, a greasy cheeseburger, your body might use some of that, but it's not going to use all of it. So we want to make sure that we have the poly and the monounsaturated fats so that your body can use those for fuel. And your body, once your body has enough of the daily requirements, when you're trying to burn extra fat for energy so that you're losing weight, your body will have enough of what it needs so that it can go after what it doesn't.
Yeah, I think you touched on it, but I've heard there's different types of fats, and some of them are quite good. Is it written on the label of certain products of what the fat is or the name of the fat that we should be trying to eat?
Well, when you look at your food label, it'll say total fat. And then underneath, it'll say saturated fat. Some food labels have even included trans fats. But if you look down, and the easiest way for most people to find out what I'm talking about is when I ask them to pick up their butter or their margarines or their, I can't believe it's not butter. And it'll say on it, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated. And those are the things that are included in your total fat. But their saturated fat, you want your saturated fat to always be less than half of the total fat so that your mono and your polys are higher. So you want to really look for those because those are the good fats that you'll find in fatty fishes, salmon, your olive oils, even peanut butter, everyone knows how high in fat it is, but it's low in saturated fat. So, you want to be sure that you're eating those good fats because your body needs those. And as you get older, you absolutely need those fats so that your body can heal itself also.
Right. So it's not enough just to look at the fat content. We have to look at and see what type of fat we're eating because some of those fats can help us and some of the fats can be not quite good for us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the trans fat, hydrogenated fat. An example that I was always taught was, and I always express to people is, a stick of butter. If a stick, so you have whipped butter and you have a stick of butter. Normally, a stick of butter, I think, has 10 grams of fat per pat. So those are those little pats of butter you put in the restaurant on your bread. That's 10 grams of fat. And a lot of them have 8 saturated fat. Whereas you could get something like, I can't believe it's not butter, that'll have 5, and maybe, 2.5 of it will be saturated. So it's less of the evil, but there are some that, and I'm not saying butter's not good for you, but, I recommend whipped butters, things that are not hydrogenated, good old fashioned Crisco, lard, people used to use for their baking, that is hydrogenated. So those are the trans fats.
Yeah. It seems like it just gets so complicated. And I know, like, for some people, when they're talking about fat and they think about different meats and, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't eat so much meat because it has a lot of fat in it. But then you need your protein. And, how do you recommend balancing that? And because protein is important as well. And maybe you could talk about where we can find different sources of protein for us.
So a lot of people do like their red meat. So I recommend, beef, veal, lamb, pork. Pork is not the other white meat. Pork tenderloin is white meat, is considered a leaner meat. Beef tenderloin is very lean. So when people want to eat the higher fat ones that have that like beef that's loaded with iron, I tell them, try not to have it more than a couple of times a week, and try to balance it off with a healthy salad. And the next day, make sure that, you're not having leftovers the next day. Let your body use those, calories and those fat grams. But again, beans, eggs, fish. We have salmon that is loaded with it's very high in fat, but it's high in the omega fats. So you can have a balance of proteins, the chicken, the turkey. But some people don't eat the meat proteins. So they have to go to the nuts and the beans and tofu. So there's so many different kinds. And knowing how to balance it all, I just recommend people, if you know that you're having a high fat dinner, and whether it's salmon or a piece of steak, you want to balance that throughout the day and say, well, you know what, I'm having that for dinner. Maybe I'll have a turkey sandwich for lunch, so that you can balance out how much fat you're having in that day, so that nothing is actually off of the menu. You want to be able to eat, but in moderation.
Yeah, I like that a lot, that you don't have to think about cutting food out. You just have to think about moderation and maybe a little bit of meal planning. And would you have any recommendations of what, like, your food for the day would be, or a meal plan would be?
Oh, okay. Well, depending on the person, I mean, I tell people to start their day with a whole grain oatmeal, with some fruit. And then I really believe in eating every 3 to 4 hours, so that you have a snack in between, whether it's a yogurt and a fruit, and having a lunch with a whole grain bread, maybe with some vegetables and a lean protein. Afternoon snack is always important, because people sometimes skip that, and then they're ravenous at dinner time. So maybe a couple of cheese sticks with an apple, or even some hummus with some celery. And then when you get to dinner, you have your sweet potato and your protein and your vegetables. And a lot of people stay away from the carbs late at night. Sweet potatoes are a very good high source of energy. So I tell them, if you know that you can't just stop at a half a cup of rice, keep the whole grains and all the things, the heavier things, earlier when you're more active. And of course you have to have your snack at night, because we're all sitting around because of COVID. But choose things that you can have. Keep those things in the house. Maybe a reduced fat ice cream, or some fruit with some light whipped cream, or something that is fresh. And be sure that it's something you want. I always tell people, do not eat something that you do not like, because if I told you to eat cottage cheese and you don't like that, you're going to eat it because I've told you that it's nutritious and you should have it. But then you're going to go and eat the thing that you really wanted. So you've added more calories. So I tell people, moderation, eat the things that or keep those things in the house, so that you can have them and you can plan them out to have it.
Yeah, exactly. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there when you said take a minute and think about it. And I don't know your experience, but with the whole kind of push for mindful eating, of taking some time before you get that snack and to think about, what do I really want to eat? So you're not picking through 100 things and, sitting down and enjoying the snack, rather than being a little doubtful if you should eat or not. So just kind of taking that extra step and thinking about it, thinking, am I hungry or am I thirsty for it? And I know we talked about this already, of everything in moderation, but if somebody were to ask you, are there good foods and are there bad foods? How would you answer that? That's a question we get a lot.
I really don't believe that there are bad foods. I think that we can eat too many of a food that is not as nutritious as we should. I know that if you want to have some chocolate, you should be mindful and know that that's who you are, that you like that. If you like something, you should know that you can have it. I try to tell people to find a better quality, or a more nutritious source of what they like. So if you like potato chips, try to get baked. If you do not like that, get a small bag, so that you're not eating out of this large bag of potato chips. Know who you are. And again, I don't think there's any bad foods as long as you're looking at the 5 food groups and you're trying to balance out your day, and then you have something that's not quite, a piece of chocolate cake or whatever it is that some people like. Um, I really believe that you should have it, because if you don't, I know, and it's that forbidden food. By the end of the week, you're going to have that plus a few more.
That's
So
right. That's right. You made me think. So, for those of you out there, Mary kindly writes our daily nutrition tips, which you can get through our email or on Facebook. And next week, your tips are going to be talking about dark chocolate.
mhm.
And every day, I'll give you a preview is of how great dark chocolate is for us. And then there's always that disclaimer that even though this food is so great for us, it's still kind of bad for us. So it's good and bad at the same time.
Exactly. But again, if you think about it, Ashley, most foods, I mean, even if I gave you a healthy food to eat for you can't have 5,000 calories or 2,000 calories of too much of anything, whether it's good or bad. So I think that if you're told that you can have everything within a certain time, and you can plan it all out, and you can be mindful about what you're eating, then you can put it in perspective and say, I don't have to eat this whole cake today. I can have some next week.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I think another common question that we get is how sometimes our medication affects the food we eat, or if we have to watch what food we eat because of medication. And do you have any general advice on that?
That's a very good question. A lot of medications cannot be taken with certain foods. I know that, for instance, cholesterol medication in the morning, a lot of people do not take their grapefruit or citrus fruits with that. Now, again, your doctor, your pharmacist is the person that will tell you that. I've had patients that have had grapefruit right after they have their breakfast. I've had people that have taken their thyroid medicine an hour prior to breakfast because that they are not allowed to take it. They need to take it. They need to take it an hour prior. But then there's doctors that say you take it with your breakfast. So your doctor is the person that you should be listening to. There are so many foods that interact with medications. You want to be sure that when you pick up your medication, your pharmacist is very knowledgeable. But your doctor, when you got your prescription, should probably talk to you about that.
That's right. It sounds like a good idea to have that conversation when you go to your next doctor's appointment to say, oh, I've been eating a lot of this food, and just a general check-in, or especially when something's prescribed to you new. But I think, like many professions, when people hear you're a nutritionist, they have lots of questions right off the bat for you. And if you could give them one piece of advice, what would your best piece of advice be in regards to nutrition?
When people ask me, what should I do? A lot of people ask me because they want to lose weight. Right now, I'm enjoying the Council on Aging because none of them are asking me that. They just want to be healthy and they just want knowledge. So what I tell people is, you should eat a balanced diet. You should get enough exercise, drink enough water. But when you're looking at your diet, be sure that you're looking at all the 5 food groups and really trying to target something from each group, so that at the end of the day, you can say, I had fruits, I had vegetables, I had a good source of dairy. And a lot of us cannot eat dairy. So then you look for calcium through your salads. But know that you're getting your nutrients by your diet. Don't just eat mindlessly, because some of us are so busy that's what we just grab and go. Well, now we have a chance. A lot of people had to slow down because of the COVID. So you can actually look at what you're eating and plan it out for the night and really think about what you want to have. And if you are mindful, you will have that extra piece of cake or something here. But tomorrow you may know that, I might have to have more salad today. So I suggest that, try to eat eat quality foods. Make your foods count, and exercise, whether it's going up and down your stairs, doing laundry, or taking a walk, or doing a Zoom exercise class. Move your body.
Yeah, I think, Mary, you said it right in the beginning there, that it's not about so much the weight. It's about eating and looking at nutrition so that you can be healthy and live happy. And, I think that's just great advice to give to folks. And also to talk about the interplay with exercise, and how Mary and why Mary has joined the Council on Aging is so that she can be part of our Fit for Life program. So for many of you out there know that Fit for Life is an exercise program and a nutrition program. So when we're open at the center, people come in and they go and meet with Chris and they have their exercise classes. And then Mary will be there one day a week as well to give the general nutrition classes. But in our times of COVID, we're remote, and you can catch Chris on YouTube and on the cable channel and on Zoom. And you can certainly sign up for Mary's class Monday mornings, Wednesday mornings, and sporadic special events along the way she'll be doing. So thank you so much for joining us at the Council on Aging, Mary, and thank you so much for being here today. And thank you all for your time at home. Until next
Thank you very much. Nice talking with you.
Thank you.
Bye.